Joining us now from Tel Aviv is retired Colonel Miri. She is a director of the International Institute for Counterterrorism at Reichman University, and I thank you for joining us on what must be incredibly tense hours there in Israel. You know, you contend that this deal, if it succeeds, will be bittersweet for many reasons. The obvious one is that not all the hostages will be freed, but you also say that when any terror entity uses hostages and actually gets something in return, it makes, in your words, hostages be worthwhile for taking. It's sobering, isn't it?
One of the challenges in today's world is, what do you do in such a situation? Think of it right now for both of us, two women talking to each other, where terrorists come in, take our children, our sisters, our brothers, our parents, ourselves, use them as a bargaining card. But if we don't give something for them, we're not going to get back our families, our people. It is the worst of the situations, and essentially all of the countries try to avoid hostage situations. And in this case, that failure of October 7th, but it's also about what Hamas aspires to, is using people as the bargaining cards. So the bittersweet is, don't we all want to see right now a 9-month, really, I have to correct myself, a 10.5-month baby who's been there from October 7th come home? What do we do with the 3-year-old and 6-year-old who were taken, where their parents were murdered in front of them? What do you tell them when they come back? So in that sense, you need to have them back, but you know that the hostages themselves are only used as a pawn, and that's a really challenging situation.
Yeah, in fact, challenging doesn't begin to cover it. It's nearly unprecedented, the situation that Israel's dealing with right now. And yet, how difficult do you think it will be for Israel to continue to prosecute the war, as Netanyahu promises, we just heard him, when the majority of the hostages will remain captive?
So now think of the additional aspect that the Hamas are using the hostages. They're a bargaining card. They haven't told us who they are, so that we're waiting to know who will be the first 10, who will be those first 50. Can you imagine now the other 190 families whose children, parents, kids are the ones who are not coming back? So when you say about engaging in the war, Hamas is a terror organization. One of the only reasons right now that they've agreed to this pause and to bring in the hostages and to exchange some are because of the military pressure. It's not the only one. It's going hand in hand with additional pressures, but Israel has to continue that pressure, because that is sadly the only language that they understand as a terror organization, hand in hand. Who else pressures them? Perhaps Qatar a bit, maybe a bit more, probably also Egypt, but they need to also understand that their military terror capabilities are also completely under threat.
Under threat, and yet some contend, and the U.S. perhaps tried at this point to make sure that perhaps Israel postponed their ground assault, or perhaps had a more surgical approach to the airstrikes. Is that not, a salient argument to put forward, that maybe the hostage negotiations would have gone better and more would have been freed, even if all of them hadn't been freed in that situation?
Okay, so Paula, let's take this apart for a moment. I'm now the terror organization, and what you just said to me is, I know now where I am going to build all of my defenses. I'll build them into the civilian population, and you, me, the world, will then tell Israel, you have to stop. You can't rescue your hostages. You can't even destroy the Hamas terror capability, because Hamas built their terror capabilities into the civilian population. It's like giving the recipe of where the terrorists should build their capabilities. So I'm not saying in any way, as a mother or as a human being, that I in any way want ever, and I never will, target civilians. But you have to act against that type of terror capability. You can't allow it to grow. That would be a terrible lesson, let alone right now. It won't let the hostages out. It won't help the people of the Gaza Strip. And I agree, the price is horrible, and there is no other way to do it. If we wanted to kill everybody in the Gaza Strip and find our hostages, then we wouldn't have soldiers in a ground operation working slowly and systematically. You could do it in a different way, and sarcasm doesn't work well on TV or anywhere. We're working systematically. We're telling civilians to move. You're right. Civilians absolutely have been horribly hurt. This is a war. The civilians in Israel have been horribly hurt. It is a war, but it's the only way to act against the terror organization.
Certainly difficult hours, difficult days ahead for everyone there. I really want to thank you for your insights. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Paula.
Now for the